The year was 1992, and the Carter family lived in a modest two-story house on the edge of a mid-sized city in Pennsylvania. The wallpaper in the kitchen had begun to peel in the corners, patterned with faded sunflowers that had looked cheerful in the 80s but now seemed a little tired. The fridge hummed, plastered with magnets from road trips, school report cards, and a Polaroid of the family smiling at the county fair the summer before. That morning, Linda Carter bustled between the stove and the table, frying bacon in a cast-iron skillet while calling upstairs for her two children. She was 35, auburn hair pulled back into a loose ponytail, tired eyes betraying years of balancing work and motherhood. "Danny, Molly, breakfast is getting cold," she shouted, spatula in hand. A thud upstairs answered her, a door closing, the sound of feet scrambling. Seconds later, Danny, age 10, bounded down the stairs 2 steps at a time. He wore his favorite Chicago Bulls t-shirt, Michael Jordan's face cracked from too many washes. His hair stuck up in every direction, a permanent cowlick making him look perpetually windblown. Behind him came Molly, age 7, clutching a stuffed rabbit named Clover. Her dress was light blue, matching her wide eyes, and she had a stubborn streak that mirrored her brother's energy. She was quieter, more cautious than Danny, but fiercely loyal to him. Linda set plates of scrambled eggs on the table, smiling faintly. "Eat up, we've got a train to catch." Danny plopped into a chair, shoveling food into his mouth. "I can't wait to ride the train, Mom. Do you think it's going to be like the movies, with a dining car and everything?" Linda laughed softly. "It's not Murder on the Orient Express, sweetheart. It's just the 9:45 commuter to Harrisburg, but yes, there's a snack car." Molly climbed into her seat, setting Clover gently beside her plate. "Do trains whistle like in the cartoons?" "They do," Linda said, brushing Molly's hair back from her face. "You'll hear it before you even see it." The children exchanged a look of shared excitement. Neither had ever ridden a train before. To them, it wasn't just transportation, it was an adventure. By 8:30 a.m., the trio had bundled into jackets. It was early spring, still chilly enough that the air carried a damp bite. Linda locked the door behind them, adjusting the strap of her worn leather purse. She double-checked the train tickets inside, paper stubs she'd purchased 2 days earlier. The Carter home stood only 4 blocks from the station. The walk carried them past rows of brick row houses, corner stores with neon open signs buzzing faintly, and newspaper boxes filled with the day's headlines. Danny kicked a stray soda can down the sidewalk like a soccer ball, while Molly clutched Linda's hand tightly, Clover dangling from her other arm. The smell of fresh bagels drifted from a deli on the corner. A man in a windbreaker sold copies of the Philadelphia Inquirer, shouting about politics and the Phillies' spring training. Everything felt ordinary, safe. The kind of Saturday morning people forgot about as soon as it ended. But later, investigators would comb over every step of this walk, every person who passed them, every camera mounted near the station. They would try to reconstruct the ordinariness of it, hoping to find the moment where it stopped being ordinary. Union Station towered above them as they arrived, its facade a mix of old brick and soot-stained stone. Built in the 1920s, it had once been grand, with high-arched windows and ornate carvings, but by 1992 it carried the wear of decades. Still, it bustled with life. The marble floor of the main hall echoed with footsteps. Overhead, the old brass and glass clock ticked loudly, its hands crawling toward 9 o'clock. Vendors lined the concourse, newsstands selling gum and magazines, coffee kiosks pouring paper cups for bleary-eyed travelers. Danny spun in a circle, staring up at the high ceilings. "It's huge. Mom, look at the clock." "Stay close," Linda warned, tightening her grip on Molly's hand. The children stared at the arrivals board as letters clicked into new formations, the sound hypnotic. Clack, clack, clack. Harrisburg, 9:45, on time. For Linda, the trip was supposed to be simple. She'd promised her sister in Harrisburg she'd bring the kids for a weekend visit, letting them ride the train for the novelty of it. Just a family trip. Just a Saturday. No one could have guessed it would become the last day anyone saw Danny and Molly Carter. With half an hour until departure, they sat on one of the long wooden benches near Platform 4. Linda pulled out a paperback novel, though her eyes barely scanned the page. She was thinking of her sister, of the weekend ahead, of chores left undone at home. Danny tugged on her sleeve. "Can we get candy from the stand?" "After we board," Linda said, distracted. But Molly whispered, "What if the train leaves without us?" Linda set her book down, smiling to reassure her. "The train doesn't leave until we're on it. Promise." She kissed Molly's head, unaware it would be one of the last gestures of comfort she'd give her daughter. Later, investigators would pore over the station's security footage, grainy black and white tapes stored in clunky VHS machines. At 9:12 a.m., the camera near Platform 4 captured the Carter family. Linda seated, Danny pacing, Molly hugging Clover. At 9:15, the footage showed Linda rising, purse on her shoulder. She appeared to say something to the children before walking toward the ticket office just out of frame. For the next 2 minutes, Danny sat beside Molly, swinging his legs. They appeared relaxed. Normal. At 9:17, the tape flickered with static. A train whistle echoed faintly in the distance, though no train was scheduled to arrive until 9:45. When the picture cleared, the bench was empty. Clover lay alone on the seat. The children were gone. Witnesses would later give conflicting accounts. A conductor swore he saw 2 children boarding the wrong train, but could never identify which one. A janitor claimed he spotted them near the maintenance tunnels. A woman at the coffee kiosk insisted she saw Danny tugging Molly toward the far end of the platform, chasing strange lights. None of the accounts were ever confirmed. Linda returned at 9:19, tickets in hand, only to find the bench empty. Clover lay where Molly had left it. Danny's bull's cap rested beside it. She called their names, voice breaking as she ran through the station. But they were already gone. On a chilly Saturday morning in 1992, Danny and Molly Carter walked into Union Station with their mother. 17 minutes later, they were gone. No trace. No witnesses that could agree. Just 2 children swallowed by a place meant to carry people forward. For the Carter family, time stopped that morning. For investigators, the question remained, where did the children go when the cameras went dark? When Linda Carter came back to the bench at Platform 4, 3 tickets clutched in her hand, her kids were gone. Only 2 things sat on the wooden seat: Molly's stuffed rabbit, Clover, and Danny's red Chicago Bulls cap. Her heart didn't drop all at once. At first, her brain told her the obvious excuses. They're in the bathroom. They're at the snack stand. Danny took Molly to look at the trains. But then her stomach twisted, because Danny wouldn't have left Clover behind, and Molly wouldn't have left her brother's cap. "Danny?" she called, her voice sharp. "Molly?" No answer. She turned in a circle, her eyes scanning the crowd. Families, commuters, coffee in hand, luggage wheels squeaking across the marble. Too much noise, too much movement. Nobody noticed the panic rising in her throat. She shouted again, louder this time. "Danny! Molly!" A woman brushed past her, muttering, "Watch it." Linda clutched Clover to her chest. The rabbit's ear was warm, like Molly had been holding it only seconds earlier. A security guard in a navy blazer noticed her wild eyes and ran over. "My kids," Linda gasped. "They were right here. 10 years old, 7 years old, 2 minutes ago." The guard did what guards always do. Calm her down, repeat procedure. "Ma'am, kids wander all the time. They're probably in the bathroom or at the candy counter. We'll find them." "No," Linda snapped. "You don't understand. My daughter is 7. She wouldn't just walk off." The guard tapped his radio. "Control, we've got a code yellow at Platform 4. Initiate protocol." Within 30 seconds, orange barricades went up. 2 more guards appeared from the left, another from the right. Announcements crackled overhead, polite but firm. "Attention passengers. Platform 4 is temporarily closed for maintenance. Please proceed to platforms 2 and 6. The station shifted like a giant organism, redirecting its flow. Travelers grumbled, detoured, craned their necks to see the commotion. Linda's eyes fell back to the bench. Clover slumped sideways. The red cap sat upside down. She whispered, "Oh God, no." 9:24 a.m. Assistant Station Manager Ray DeLuca took control. Middle-aged, balding, sweat shining on his forehead, he had the air of someone who'd seen false alarms before. He ushered Linda into a side office and shut the door. Name? Linda Carter. Children's names and ages? Daniel, 10, Molly, 7. How long have they been gone? 2, maybe 3 minutes. I left to get tickets, came back and... Ray turned to the door. Get me the CCTV tapes. 9:12 through 9:20, platform 4. Now. Meanwhile, staff rounded up witnesses. Witness #1. Paula, coffee kiosk worker. I saw the mom reading a book. Kids were on the bench. She left. They sat there. Then, this is weird, I heard a train whistle. But no train was due. I looked up, and I swear I saw a flash of light. When I looked back, the bench was empty. Witness #2. Leon, janitor. I was near the maintenance stairs. Thought I saw 2 little shadows down by the gate, like they were heading toward the service tunnels. But I blinked, and they were gone. Witness #3. Glenn, conductor. Wrong train boarding happens all the time. Around 9:18, I thought I saw 2 kids running toward the end of the platform. Could have been them. Looked like headlights in the fog. But there was no passenger train scheduled at that time. 3 witnesses. 3 conflicting stories. But one strange overlap. All of them mentioned a whistle and some kind of light. The security control room reeked of dust and warm metal. 4 bulky VHS decks hummed, reels spinning. Technician Arlene shoved in the platform 4 tape. Grainy black and white footage flickered across the monitor. 9 hours, 12 minutes, and 7 seconds. Linda on the bench, kids fidgeting. 9 hours, 15 minutes, and 4 seconds. Linda stands, purse on her shoulder, gestures, stay put. 9 hours, 16 minutes, and 12 seconds. Danny swinging his legs, Molly hugging Clover. 9 hours, 16 minutes, and 58 seconds. A faint flash at the far end of the platform. 9 hours, 17 minutes, and 0 seconds. The screen jumps. A flicker, a stutter, 6 frames gone. 9 hours, 17 minutes, and 3 seconds. The bench is empty. Only Clover and the cap remain. Arlene rewound, slowed it down frame by frame. Same result. Ray leaned in. Glitch? Voltage drop, Arlene muttered. Old system. Happens. But the audio's clear. She cranked the volume. Static hiss. Then, faint, undeniable, the mournful cry of a train whistle. Ray's skin prickled. There was no train scheduled. The janitor had mentioned shadows near the maintenance stairs. Ray and 2 guards followed him down, Linda trailing close behind. The air changed as soon as they descended. Damp, metallic, faintly electric. Pipes lined the walls. Rust streaked concrete. Chalk arrows from old workers marked turns long abandoned. At the bottom, Leon pointed. Over there. That's where I saw them. A concrete wall sealed off an old corridor. But in the dust on the floor was a small shoe print. Linda crouched. Tears welled. That's Molly's size. I know it. Ray pressed his palm against the wall. The concrete felt wrong, like it had been patched recently, smoother than the rest. Arlene's voice buzzed over the radio. Ray, I pulled a 1968 blueprint. There used to be a corridor labeled 12B right behind that wall, but records show it was welded shut. Reason listed as a safety. Ray asked, what kind of safety? Arlene hesitated. Note just says nocturnal activity. No signature. By 9:47, Detective Helen Ward arrived. Short hair, trench coat damp with rain, eyes sharp and cool. She listened as Ray laid out the facts. The missing frames, the whistle, the shoe print, the sealed corridor. Ward's first order. Lock down platforms 3, 4, 5. No one in or out. Get me raw copies of every tape and keep that mother close. Panic spreads faster than truth. She turned to Linda. I know this is the worst moment of your life. I need you steady. Tell me exactly what you said when you left. Linda wiped her face. I told them, don't move. I'll be right back. I told Danny, watch your sister. Ward nodded. And he would have listened? Yes, Linda said firmly. Always. Ward scribbled in her notebook. Obedient kids. Unlikely to wander far. By 11:20, K9 units arrived. Clover and the Cap were bagged for scent. One dog pulled hard toward the maintenance gate. The other tracked straight to the edge of the platform, then froze, whining. The handler frowned. Trail just stops. Ward stared at the yellow line at the platform's edge. Beyond it, empty tracks gleamed. She muttered, kids don't just evaporate. But something in her gut told her the dogs weren't wrong. Back upstairs, Arlene flagged something odd in the system logs. At 9 hours 16 minutes and 40 seconds, phone booth 16B registered a line latch, like someone picked up the receiver. But no coin drop, no number dialed. Line stayed open for 40 seconds, then it cut. Ward frowned. Any footage? Camera for that booth was down. Where is 16B? Right next to the maintenance stairs. Ward filed it in her notes. Whistle, light, glitch, phone. That afternoon, engineers chipped a small inspection hole in the 12B wall. Ward peered through with a borescope camera. What she saw made her skin crawl. A dust-choked platform stretched beyond, wooden beams rotting, incandescent bulbs long dead. Old ads clung to the walls, cigarette posters, ride in comfort train slogans, and in the dust, a fresh set of child-sized footprints. Ward's heart hammered. These were made today. At the far end of the hidden platform, something else glinted. An old payphone handset cable severed, stamped 16B. Ward lifted her radio. Seal this off. No one goes in without me. By nightfall, 16B was taped off. Yet at 4:17 p.m., the phone rang. Everyone in the control room froze. Ward lifted the receiver. This is Detective Ward. Static. Then, a breath. Small, shaky, like a child exhaling. Her skin went cold. Danny? Molly? For a second, she swore she heard a whisper, too faint to parse. Then clear as day, the mournful wail of a train whistle. The line went dead. Arlene's log updated automatically. Line latched. 0 coin. Echo. By 10 p.m., the press was swarming outside. Cameras flashing, reporters shouting. Ward stuck to her line. Active investigation. No details at this time. Inside, she replayed the 9:17 tape for the 10th time. Freeze, rewind, freeze. At frame 9 hours 16 minutes and 58 seconds, a flicker near the column behind the bench. Zoomed in, it looked like a faint glow, like the blink of a light-up sneaker. Ward exhaled. Molly. But in the next frame, it was gone. 17 minutes. That was all it took for Danny and Molly Carter to vanish into the noise of Union Station. Witnesses spoke of whistles and lights. Cameras skipped frames. A sealed tunnel showed fresh footprints. And a phone that should have been silent rang with a child's breath. By nightfall, the question wasn't just where the Carter children had gone, but what had taken them. By 11:05 p.m., Union Station didn't sound like a station anymore. The usual Saturday night clatter, luggage wheels, arguments about delays, somebody busking a Springsteen cover, was replaced by plastic barricades scraping across marble and radios hissing code words. Assistant Manager Ray DeLuca signed off on the partial closure while muttering apologies to angry travelers. Platforms 3, 4, and 5 are closed for maintenance. Please proceed to 2 or 6. Lies with a purpose. Get the crowd away, shrink the noise. Detective Helen Ward stood under the brass and glass clock, the same one Linda had promised her daughter they'd hear whistle before you even see it. Ward's legal pad was a battlefield of arrows and timestamps. She drew a hard box around one number and said it out loud, like a curse she needed to recognize to fight. 9:17. Ma'am? Ray asked. Everything is orbiting that minute, Ward said. Every witness, every log, every glitch, that phone booth, all of it keeps falling back to 9:17. She divided the remaining night shift. Team A stays topside. I want eyes on the CCTV decks and all the system logs. Power, Pennsylvania, payphones. If a light flickers, I want to know which bulb and why. Team B goes with me in engineering. We check the 12B seal again and we babysit it till sunrise. Ray squinted. You think someone used the tunnels to remove the kids? Ward shook her head. If this was a simple snatch and run, we'd have human footprints, doors propped, something. What we have is interruptions, echoes. We'll treat it like a crime scene, but we're also going to treat it like a mechanical failure of time. Ray blinked. Is that a thing? It is tonight. Rain began in thin wires, silvering the cathedral-like facade. Under umbrellas, the press corps set up tripods. When Ward came to the top of the steps, microphones tilted like iron flowers. Detective Ward, is this an abduction? Ma'am, why is Platform 4 closed? Is there a suspect? Are the children alive? Ward kept her voice even. We have an active search and a controlled closure in one section of the station. We're reviewing footage and interviewing witnesses. We ask the public to stay clear of platforms 3, 4, and 5. Is it true a phone booth rang with no coins? Ward's eyes flicked once. We're reviewing all system logs. What about reports of a train whistle when there was no train? We won't discuss unverified details. Cameras kept flashing. Behind her, the station clock struck the half hour. The sound sluiced through the rain and into the marble like water through rock. 12:12 a.m. In the service corridor, the air was cooler. Concrete sweated. The smell down there was a cocktail of wet dust, machine oil, and a metallic tang that technicians called ozone and janitors called storm smell. Security guard Pratt and systems tech Shu met Ward at the sealed 12B panel. The thumb-sized inspection hole they'd drilled earlier stared back like a pupil. The borescope's cable hung from a hook, coiled like a sleeping snake. No one goes through that opening, Ward said. We're not collapsing a wall on top of a crime scene, we're only observing. Pratt swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Shu slid the camera in, feathering the joystick. Grayscale tunnel, boards, posters mummified in their own glue, and dust. So much dust it looked like fog frozen in place. The hidden platform was waiting like a room in a house no one admitted existed. Ward leaned closer. On the monitor, child-sized shoe prints led away from the wall and then, maddeningly, just stopped near the far edge. Shu whispered, Fresh. Today. Pratt set his palm on the panel, then jerked it away. Vibration. Ward touched the concrete, felt it too. Not a shake. A hum. A low, velvety frequency that lived in your teeth. Shu adjusted the camera again. At the far corner of the screen, something blinked. Once. Twice. A tiny dot of light. Ward breathed. Molly's shoes. The dot died. The hum faded, as if whatever engine it belonged to had rolled on by. Pratt made himself laugh. Wiring flare. They cut power to this level in the 70s, Shu said softly. There is no wiring. The three of them stood in a long minute of silence, broken only by a radio hiss and the soft pop of concrete shedding moisture. From somewhere behind the wall, a sound threaded through the masonry, so faint Ward thought she imagined it. A laugh, small, breathless, like a kid trying not to be heard. Back up, Ward ordered. We're not alone in this corridor. They killed the borescope. The inspection hole became a black bead again. 1:03 a.m. upstairs, Arlene in control watched the station systems the way a surgeon watches a heart monitor. On the PA console, the log stream rolled by. Mic check at 22:13, announcement at 22:40, power test at 23:05. Beneath that, a second screen displayed payphone events. One line pulsed in bright text. 16, B-line, latched. Again? At 1:03? Arlene hissed into the radio. Ward, 16B just latched. No coin, no dial. 40 seconds open, then dropped. Ward, anyone near it? Negative. We've got a camera on the row now. Booth's empty. Arlene jogged down the concourse, shoulders hunched against the rain that blew in each time the front doors dumped a crowd of annoyed passengers back onto the street. She passed the booth row, touched the tape with 2 fingers, then stopped. The air near the payphones felt different, more charged, like the second before lightning. Above the phone row, a narrow vent grill rattled. Arlene frowned, pulled a multi-tool, and popped it free. Dust breathed out. Something yellowed, fluttered loose, and landed on the tile with the papery slap of an old leaf. She crouched. It was a ticket stub. Hardstock, singed at one edge. The print was the kind you only saw in museums, serifed, deep-inked, hand-punched. Stamp, platform, last digit scuffed away, punch, time, 9:17, logo, 1954. Arlene's chest went cold. She flipped it over. On the back, 2 stick figures and a crooked arrow were scrawled in pencil. Underneath, D+M. She spoke, barely. Nope. She slipped the ticket into a clear sleeve and trotted it to Ward. Ward didn't touch it at first. She stared at the punch, 9:17, then turned it over with a gloved finger and traced the pencil marks without quite letting her glove press the paper. Who found this? She asked. Vent over the phones, Arlene said. It was tucked in there, like something blew it in. From where I couldn't tell you. Ward's mouth made a shape like a word she didn't want to say. Finally, she said a different one. Echo. 2 a.m. They dug up a retired conductor named Mears, who lived in a walk-up 3 blocks down and still wore his uniform hat like a talisman. He showed up with his own umbrella and a look on his face that said, I told you so, before anyone told him anything. I started here in '55, Mears said, voice chiseled down to gravel by decades of platform orders and winter wind. Back then we had a phrase for the odd stuff. The echo. Nobody wrote it down. If you wrote it down, you'd get written up for scaring people. Ward kept him talking. What was the echo? The rails would sing when no train was due. PA would burp a boarding call for a platform number that didn't exist. You'd put your hand on a pillar and feel a rumble through it. Just for a minute, mind. Round 9:17 some nights. Then it would pass like a train that took an old route the living forgot. Ever see people on the wrong side of it? Ward asked. Mears looked at her for a long time. Saw a boy once, near the maintenance stairs. He was trying to wave at somebody I couldn't see. He wasn't scared. That's what shook me. He looked like he could hear a voice that wanted him to follow. Did you follow? He shook his head. No, ma'am. I listened to the old men who told me the only rule that matters if the echo comes through. What rule? Don't follow the light. Ward and Ray traded a look that said, We've heard that sentence twice today from 2 different mouths. 2:40 a.m. On her sister's vinyl kitchen chair, Linda Carter stared at the phone as if she could will it to ring. She'd tried to call the station 3 times and hung up before it connected. She'd moved Clover from the table to the counter and back to the table again. In the living room, her sister had fallen asleep upright, TV hissing blue static. Linda scanned the kitchen for anything that made sense. A magnetized calendar, a takeout menu, a microwave clock blinking 2:40 in green digits. She got up for water. When she turned back, the microwave clock didn't say 2:40 anymore. It said 9:17. She blinked. It said 2:41 again. She told herself she was exhausted. She told herself she needed sleep. She told herself any story her brain would take. None of them held. Linda put Clover on the counter and whispered to the empty air, If you can hear me, baby, don't follow the light. 3:12 a.m. control hummed. Arlene's eyes were raw. Ray was on his 3rd coffee, then set it down because his hands were shaking and he didn't want to admit it. At 3:17, the public address system clicked on by itself. No one had touched the mic. A voice, warm, analog, the kind that belonged to porters in the 1940s, rolled out over empty platforms. Now boarding on platform 12. The last word stretched like a tape eaten by its machine. 12 crawled into 2 and 11 and 12 again, Loops eating loops. Then the PA clicked off. Logs? Ward snapped. Arlene scanned. No announcement triggered. It's not on the board. Ray's voice was small. We don't have a platform 12. Ward was already moving. We do tonight. They reached the sealed panel at 3:20. The air felt colder. Pratt had his arms wrapped over his chest as if the corridor were leaking November. Camera, Ward said. Shu slid the borescope in. The view trembled. He steadied it against the edge of the hole. The hidden platform stared back like a photograph brought out of a drawer. Silence. Dust. Posters. Edge, Ward said. He panned toward the far end, where the shoe prints had stopped. At first, Ward thought the screen was flickering. Then she realized the dust itself was moving, rippling almost invisibly, like breath passing over powder in a slow draft. A faint line of small impressions formed. 1, 2, 3. Forward. 2 sets. Side by side. Jesus, Pratt whispered. They're walking. The borescope's microphone picked up something like a pulse. No, not a pulse. A rhythm. Metal over joints. A wheel with flat spots shearing the same inch of track over and over. Shu swallowed. How are there tracks in a room with no trains? Light flowered at the far edge of the frame. It was weak at first, pearly, as if seen through old glass. Then brighter. 2 points. Headlights. Kill it, Ward said, almost a whisper. But Sue hadn't moved. The light got brighter. The borescope adjusted exposure. The dust kicked up as if wind were crawling along the floor. From somewhere beyond the wall, a whistle moaned. Not loud. Close. The gooseflesh on Ward's arms rose in a wave. Pratt took half a step back. We should shut this thing and leave. Ward leaned into the hum. She couldn't explain it later, not to Ray, not to internal affairs, not to herself, but she swore she heard a child's voice beyond the panel, shaped by stone and distance. Danny, don't. Then a second voice, smaller. Mom? Ward's hand slammed the concrete. Molly, stay put. Do not go toward the... The borescope went white. Sue yanked the cable out, cursing. The corridor went dark as if the single bulb above them had given up, then coughed back to life. When they could see again, the inspection hole was just a black coin in a gray wall. The hum was gone. Something skittered across the concrete at their feet, a tiny star dragging a dusty tail. It hadn't fallen from above. It had come out from under the seam at the base of the sealed panel and spun to a stop beside Ward's boot. She bent and picked it up with 2 fingers. It was a plastic charm, the kind you clip through the lace of a kid's light-up sneaker. A little yellow star with a hairline crack. Ward closed her hand around it so hard the edges bit her palm. Bag it, she said, voice steady by force. We're done down here for tonight. Pratt stared at the base seam. How did it... bag it? They backed out of the corridor like divers who've stayed too long at depth. By the time Ward reached the booth row, her pulse had stopped trying to find a rhythm. Arlene stood with the recorder already in place, eyes too wide to be useful. Don't pick it up unless it rings, Ward said. The phone rang. 317 glowed on the system monitor. Ward lifted the receiver. Union Station. Detective Ward. Static. Beneath it, something else. Soft hissing, like breath pushing through a straw. She thought she heard words and told herself not to think she heard words because that meant she'd already decided there were words. Danny? Molly? She said, as gently as if she could see someone shrinking under a table. The static shifted. She could almost see the sound as a gray ribbon in her mind, the way you watched tape wrinkle when a cassette tried to eat a song you loved. A whisper got through. Not a name, not a sentence. Just 2 syllables, fragile and quick. Don't. Then the whistle again. So close she yanked the receiver away from her ear on reflex. The line cut. On the log screen, text scrolled itself into place. 16B. Line latched. 0 coin. Echo. Ray said nothing. Arlene said nothing. Ward hung up and pinched the bridge of her nose, and for the first time that night she looked like a person who'd been awake for 20 hours instead of a machine with a badge. "Shut it down," she said. "Phones. PA. Power to this row. We will start fresh at 7. "What do I tell the day shift?" Ray asked. "Tell them platform 4 remains closed, and find me every blueprint, rumor, scrap of paper from anyone who ever worked this place between 1950 and now." She turned away, then turned back and tapped the vent grill Arlene had opened. "And get me a clean room box. That ticket is going to forensics. If it's a prop, I want the prankster. If it's not, I want the ink dated. If the lab shrugs, I want them to shrug in writing." Before she left, Ward climbed the grand stair to the concourse and stood beneath the brass clock. Rain scored the windows. The marble carried the night back to her in small echoes, her own footsteps, a janitor's cart, a tired cough from Ray as he read the logbook yet again. The minute hand landed on 3:30. It stayed. Ward stared, blinked. The second hand ticked on. The minute hand had not moved. A trick of the light? She stepped closer, squinting at the bevel of the glass, at the brass seam that circled it like a halo. Her radio cracked. "Detective? Pratt. You should see this." She jogged back to the 12B corridor, fear pressing the air out of her chest. Pratt pointed wordlessly at the concrete. There, in the fine dust that had shaken down from the drilling earlier, were 2 partial smudges, kid-sized, side by side, as if 2 small hands had pressed from the other side and left their shadows in the powder. Sue whispered, "We sealed that seam. Nothing came through." Ward stared at the handprints and thought of Linda's voice breaking over her own name, and of the star charm digging into her palm, and of a minute that wouldn't move on a clock that had kept moving for 60 years. She put her hand, adult-sized, dry, shaking, on the wall beside the prints and leaned in until her forehead just touched the concrete. "Don't follow the light," she whispered, to whoever could hear what was and wasn't supposed to be heard. The hum did not return. The wall did not answer. But from somewhere up in the station, a speaker clicked and released one last breath of tape hiss like an old ghost exhaling. Then silence laid itself over Union Station like snow. By dawn, platforms 3, 4, and 5 were still closed. A sealed wall had breathed, a phone had spoken without coins, and a hidden platform had shown fresh footprints in 60-year dust. In the Carter file, the first day ended with a plastic star, a singed ticket punched at 9:17, and a rule whispered across generations: "Don't follow the light." The second day would not be kinder. It would only be louder. By 6 a.m., the city was awake, but Union Station still wore the hangover of the night before. Barricades stayed up at platforms 3, 4, and 5. A cluster of tired cops and transit officials leaned on paper cups of burnt coffee. The building had been searched top to bottom twice. Dogs run through every corridor, every broom closet, every goddamn bathroom stall. Nothing. The Carter kids were still gone. Detective Helen Ward had been awake 24 hours straight. Her notebook was fat with scrawls, arrows connecting timestamps, sketches of shoe prints, circles around 9:17 so dark the pen nearly punched through the page. Linda Carter sat in the lost and found office with Clover in her lap, rocking like she was trying to keep her own body from flying apart. Every few minutes she whispered one of her children's names under her breath. She looked like a ghost who hadn't realized she was dead yet. A reporter jammed a camera against the barricade shouting, "Detective Ward, is this a kidnapping?" Ward ignored him. She told Ray quietly, "Pull the tapes from every platform, every payphone, every PA feed for the whole day. Lock them. If anyone tries to check them out without my signature, I want to know." Ray nodded, bleary-eyed. "People are already calling this the ghost train thing." Ward snapped her notebook shut. "Then let them. But we're not closing this file." The first week was chaos. Flyers went up on telephone poles and convenience store windows. School portraits of Danny and Molly with the word "missing" in red block letters. Local TV hammered the story with grainy clips of Linda sobbing on the courthouse steps. Clover clutched to her chest. Volunteers combed alleys and rail yards. Dogs sniffed warehouses. The FBI sent 2 men in gray suits to observe. They listened, nodded, wrote nothing down, and left after 48 hours. Inside the Carter home, reporters banged on the door until Linda's sister started answering with, "They're not here. Leave them alone." Neighbors whispered. Some said it had to be a family member. Some said human traffickers. Some said Linda herself was unstable, had invented half the story. Ward hated every minute of it. She sat through press briefings with her jaw clenched, listening to anchors call the case bizarre and haunting. She knew exactly what was happening. The world was already getting bored. On the 5th day, when a murder downtown pushed the kids off the front page, Ward tore the paper in half and threw it in the trash. The first week was chaos. Flyers went up on telephone poles and convenience store windows. School portraits of Danny and Molly with the word missing in red block letters. Local TV hammered the story with grainy clips of Linda sobbing on the courthouse steps. Clover clutched to her chest. Volunteers combed alleys and rail yards. Dogs sniffed warehouses. The FBI sent 2 men in gray suits to observe. They listened, nodded, wrote nothing down, and left after 48 hours. Inside the Carter home, reporters banged on the door until Linda's sister started answering with, "They're not here. Leave them alone." Neighbors whispered. Some said it had to be a family member. Some said human traffickers. Some said Linda herself was unstable, had invented half the story. Ward hated every minute of it. She sat through press briefings with her jaw clenched, listening to anchors call the case bizarre and haunting. She knew exactly what was happening. The world was already getting bored. On the 5th day, when a murder downtown pushed the kids off the front page, Ward tore the paper in half and threw it in the trash. By June 1992, tips had dried to a trickle. The hotline rang less. The press trucks parked elsewhere. Ward sat in the squad room staring at her whiteboard. 917 in the center, branches reaching out like spider legs. Phone booth 16B, Echo platform, ticket stub, 1954, plastic star, witness accounts. Every branch ended with a question mark. A fellow detective leaned on the doorway. "Helen, you've been at this 2 months straight. Maybe it's time to accept." "Don't say it. They're gone. Someone took them. Or worse. It happens." Ward jabbed the whiteboard. "Then tell me how a phone rings with no line. Tell me why the PA called out a platform that doesn't exist. Tell me how footprints appear in a tunnel sealed in 68. The detective just shook his head and walked away. Ward stayed until midnight, staring at that wall, waiting for something to break. Nothing did. For Linda, time split in two. Before 9:17 and after 9:17. She stopped working. Bills piled. She stopped answering the phone unless it was Ward. Friends dropped off casseroles until they didn't. People got tired of grief that didn't end. On anniversaries, she went to the station, stood under the brass clock, and whispered their names. Some nights she swore she heard Molly's laugh echo up the stairwell, thin as dust. She carried Clover everywhere. The rabbit grew more threadbare each year, ear hanging by a few stitches. She refused to move houses. "They'll come back," she told her sister. "They need to know where to find me." Union Station workers started whispering. They called it the 9:17 thing. Porters claimed the main clock sometimes froze for exactly 60 seconds at 9:17 a.m. before catching up again. Janitors swore they heard a phantom announcement in the dead hours. "Now boarding, platform 12. Engineers avoided the 12B service corridor like it carried plague. Ray DeLuca tried to keep it contained. "Don't spook the staff, don't talk to the press." But ghost stories have legs. Soon, commuters swapped them over coffee. A kid swore he'd seen two children holding hands by the vending machines, only for them to vanish when he blinked. Ward hated it, not because she didn't believe something had happened, but because the rumors made it sound like entertainment. She knew Linda watched the news every night, hoping the next ghost story was her kids coming home. By late '93, the Carter case had technically gone cold. Official resources dried up. But Ward refused to close it. She kept the file alive in a basement cabinet labeled Open Unsolved. Every few weeks she pulled it out, reread her notes, studied the ticket stub in its evidence bag, turned the sneaker charm over in her palm. She added clippings, small articles buried deep in the metro section. Power surge hits Union Station at 9:17 a.m. Public address malfunction reports, Platform 12. Nobody else cared. But Ward built her own timeline of anomalies. They all pointed back to the same impossible minute. By 1994, the Carters were another sad headline filed under Unsolved. The city moved on. The world moved on. But the station hadn't. On a gray March morning, a janitor scrubbing graffiti in a stairwell froze when he heard it. The whistle. Low, mournful, stretching through concrete. He checked his watch. 9:17. That same day, Ward got a call from Arlene in control. "You should come down here," Arlene said. Ward walked into the control room and found Arlene pale as paper. "Look at this," Arlene said, pointing to the monitor. The system log scrolled lines of text. Announcement played, 9:17, Platform 12. Ward's voice dropped. "There's no Platform 12. Arlene just nodded. "It's back." In the years after 1992, the Carter children's disappearance faded from headlines. The family fractured, the city forgot, the case went cold. But Union Station did not forget. Its walls hummed with whistles no one scheduled. Clocks froze on minutes that should have passed, and a phantom platform kept announcing itself to no one. For Detective Ward, the silence wasn't peace. It was a countdown. The third anniversary of the Carter children's disappearance brought only a handful of reporters to Union Station. A folding table with a few candles. Linda Carter, gaunt now, stood alone with Clover pressed to her chest. She whispered the names like prayers. Danny, Molly. Detective Helen Ward stood nearby, not in uniform but with her badge on her belt. When the cameras finally turned away, Linda said quietly, "You're the only one still here." Ward nodded. "Because this isn't finished." That same morning at 9:17 a.m., the brass station clock froze for exactly 60 seconds before jolting forward again. Commuters gasped, laughed nervously. One kid muttered, "Ghost train." Ward watched the minute hand skip and whispered, "It's not a ghost. It's a pattern." By 1996, Union Station had a reputation. Porters swore the concourse lights flickered at exactly 9:17 every morning. A ticket clerk quit after hearing children laughing in the empty stairwell behind her booth. Commuters told each other not to linger near phone booth 16B. Teenagers dared each other to sneak into the maintenance tunnels. Some came back pale, claiming they'd heard a train that never arrived. Others claimed to have seen two small figures standing side by side, holding hands, before vanishing into the dark. The station managers tried to squash the stories, but rumors move faster than trains. The echo platform became local slang for any strange noise or glitch. Ward clipped every article, scribbled every rumor into her Carter file. In spring 1997, a construction crew digging near the East Foundation uncovered a sealed passage. Word spread fast. Maybe this was where the children had gone. Ward rushed to the site. They broke open the wall to reveal a narrow tunnel, choked with dust and collapsed beams. At the end, a rusted door led to a chamber no one had entered in decades. The chamber was empty, except for an old bench splintered and sagging. On the bench was a single payphone handset. Black, cracked, stamped 16B. The line wasn't connected. It had never been wired. Ward stared at it for a long time, then ordered it bagged. She didn't tell the press. Linda never heard about it. By the late 90s, Linda was slipping. She spent hours calling 16B from her home phone, as if the booth itself could connect to her missing children. She stopped going to church. She stopped seeing friends. Her sister begged her to move out of the house. "It's eating you alive, Linda." Linda only shook her head. "If they come back, they'll come back here." Every night at 9:17, she sat by the window, staring at the street outside as if Danny and Molly might come walking home. By 1998, Ward had burned nearly all her credibility chasing the Carter case. Superiors told her flat out, "You've spent 6 years on 2 kids who probably got snatched and dumped. Move on." Ward refused. She showed them the 1954 ticket stub, the sneaker charm, the audio tapes of phantom whistles, the logs that printed Platform 12 at 9:17. "Coincidences," they said. Ward snarled. "Then explain why they all happen at the same damn minute." She got a reputation. Obsessive, unstable. Colleagues stopped inviting her to lunches. New detectives whispered she was chasing shadows. Ward didn't care. She kept her file. She kept watching. By late 1999, the Carter case drew new attention, not from the press, but from the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit. Agents reviewing cold cases flagged the Carter disappearance for its anomalies. Multiple witnesses reporting identical sensory phenomena, repeated system malfunctions tied to the same timestamp, a sealed space with unexplained footprints. Agent Marcus Hale, gray-suited and clinical, arrived in Philadelphia with a small team. "We're not here to solve a kidnapping," Hale told Ward. "We're here to catalog patterns. Something here doesn't fit ordinary crime." Ward bristled. "You're damn right it doesn't." The Bureau gathered every scrap from the station. Logs, tapes, architectural blueprints, Ward's notes. They interviewed staff again. They logged 9 separate electrical disturbances at 9:17 between 1995 and 1999. But after 3 months, they packed up. "Insufficient evidence," the report said. "No actionable lead." Ward slammed the file on her desk. "They're wrong," she muttered. "They're all wrong." New Year's Day, 2000. Union Station was quieter than usual. At exactly 9:17 a.m., the PA system clicked on by itself. The announcement was garbled, broken, but one word slid through like a blade. "Boarding, Platform 12. The voice wasn't the old 1940s porter's voice this time. It was a child's voice. Half the commuters froze. One man dropped his coffee. Ward wasn't there to hear it. She got the report secondhand. But when she listened to the security tape later, she nearly dropped the headphones. It was Molly. She knew it. Her blood iced over. The silence years weren't silence anymore. By the end of the 1990s, the Carter children's story had curdled into legend. Commuters whispered about the Echo platform. Teenagers dared each other to call 16B. Detectives called it obsession. The Bureau called it inconclusive. But the station called it something else. At 9:17 a.m., the walls hummed, the PA spoke, and the children who were supposed to be gone forever whispered their own boarding call. By the summer of 2002, 10 years after Danny and Molly Carter vanished, the Philadelphia Police Department quietly reclassified the case as inactive. No press conference, no announcement, just a memo in a file cabinet, no new leads, case closed pending new evidence. Detective Helen Ward found out not from her captain but from a clerk in records who whispered, "Hey, Carter file got pulled. They moved it to cold storage." Ward stormed down to the basement herself, yanked open the drawer and stared at the stamped cover. Inactive. Inactive, she spat, the word burning her tongue. Inactive doesn't mean solved. Her partner tried to soften it. "Helen, it's been 10 years. Kids vanish. Sometimes we don't get answers." She slammed the drawer shut. "Not like this. Not with the tapes. Not with the phone. Not with the goddamn ticket stub." But the department was done listening. Ward went home that night, poured herself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat alone in her kitchen with the evidence photos spread across the table. Every one of them stared back at her like ghosts that refused to be filed away. For Linda Carter, the closure felt like a second death. She'd never remarried. She never left the house. Clover, the stuffed rabbit, sat on the couch so long its fur grew bald in patches, its ear dangling by threads. Every June, she lit candles under the brass station clock, whispering her children's names until security shooed her away. She left hand-drawn signs that said, "We're still looking for you. Mom loves you." Neighbors stopped coming by. Family stopped asking how she was. Linda became the woman people whispered about, the one who lost her kids at the station, the one who talks to herself, the one who won't let go. But she hadn't let go because she swore she still heard them. Some nights, just before bed, the house phone would ring once, just once, and when she picked up, all she'd hear was a soft, breathy static. "Danny?" She'd whisper into the receiver. "Molly?" Nothing. Then, faintly, like the memory of a sound, the moan of a distant train whistle. By the mid-2000s, Union Station wasn't just a place to catch a train. It was a place people dared each other to visit at night. Teenagers called it the Echo Hour. They swore if you stood under the big clock at exactly 9:17 a.m., your watch would freeze. Station employees traded stories like campfire tales. A janitor claimed he heard kids' laughter echo from the service tunnels when the platforms were empty. A ticket clerk said a little girl tapped on her booth glass, but when she looked up, there was no one there. A conductor swore he saw two children board a train that wasn't scheduled, and when he checked the cars, they were empty. It became folklore. Ghost tours of the city added Union Station to their routes. Paranormal blogs wrote long posts about the phantom platform. The management hated it. They issued memos. No discussion of ghost stories with the public. But once a place gets a reputation, it sticks. By 2005, "Don't Follow the Light" had become graffiti scrawled on the bathroom walls. Detective Ward didn't survive the decade unscathed. Her obsession with the Carters cost her promotions, friendships, even her marriage. Her husband packed a suitcase in 2004 and said, "You've been living in that station for 12 years, Helen. You don't live here anymore." She didn't argue. Instead, she doubled down. Nights off, she camped in the control room, poring over logs. She pestered engineers to rerun power diagnostics. She begged supervisors to reopen the file. Finally, her captain snapped, "Helen, you're done. Take your vacation or I'll make it suspension. This case is over. Move on." But Ward couldn't. At 9:17 a.m. on her first forced day off, she sat in her car in the station parking lot and listened to the whistle blow across the concrete like a private taunt. In 2007, a local blogger named Sean Riker stumbled onto the story. He wrote a long post on his site, Philly Shadows, titled, "The Carter Children and the Ghost Train of Union Station." He laid out the basics: the 1992 disappearance, the phone booth 16B, the phantom announcements. He even posted scanned copies of the ticket stub and sneaker charm, leaked from an anonymous source. Ward always suspected someone in records. The post went viral, for 2007 standards anyway. Message boards lit up. Paranormal forums dissected it. Amateur ghost hunters showed up at the station with EMF detectors and tape recorders. Ward hated it, not because it was wrong, but because it turned a mother's agony into entertainment. But deep down, she couldn't deny one thing. Sean's blog kept the story alive. By 2010, Linda was a shell. Her house was cluttered with newspapers, tapes of news broadcasts, stacks of flyers that had yellowed with age. She spoke less, slept less, ate less. One winter night, neighbors called an ambulance after seeing her wandering barefoot in the snow. Clover clutched to her chest. She told paramedics she was going to meet the train. At the hospital, she whispered to a nurse, "They told me 3 days. It's been 18 years." No one knew what she meant. Ward visited her, held her hand, and promised again, "I haven't stopped looking." Linda only stared at the window, her lips moving silently as if she were whispering to someone outside. In 2012, 20 years after the kids vanished, a box of old VHS tapes was discovered in the station archives during renovations. Among them, a mislabeled tape from June 14, 1992. Ward, now semi-retired but still obsessed, begged to see it. The tape showed ordinary footage, commuters boarding, trains arriving, except at 9:17 a.m. For 3 seconds, the image distorted. Two small figures appeared in the corner of the platform, holding hands. The boy wore a bull's cap. The girl clutched something soft in her arms. Then the screen went black. Ward froze the frame and whispered, "Danny. Molly." But when forensics analyzed the tape, they claimed it was double exposure degradation. Ward didn't believe them. Through the 2010s, the pattern grew stronger. In 2015, a commuter recorded the announcement system calling Platform 12 on his phone. The video hit YouTube, racking up thousands of views. In 2017, two tourists swore they saw two kids waving at them from behind a barricaded maintenance gate. In 2019, at least 5 passengers reported their watches freezing at 9:17 for exactly 60 seconds. Each event was brushed off as coincidence, a prank, or a technical glitch. But Ward's file grew thicker. She began marking her calendar with bold red circles every time an incident occurred. The circles grew closer and closer together. By 2020, the calendar looked like it was bleeding. By the early 2000s, the Carter case was cold in the eyes of the law. The file was stamped inactive. The family withered. The detective's career crumbled. But Union Station did not rest. It whispered, it hummed, it flickered. A ticket stub from 1954. A sneaker charm. A tape that showed what shouldn't exist. By 2020, the silence was over. The echo was growing louder. And something was coming back. They were supposed to be tearing out old conduit and patching a hairline crack in the masonry behind Platform 4. Nothing glamorous. Just a pandemic-delayed renovation finally cashing its check. The foreman, Tucker Blaine, banged a knuckle against the wall and listened like it might confess. "Hollow," he said. "Great. Whoever poured this did it lazy." His apprentice, Maya Ortiz, rolled her eyes. "Or it's a mouse cathedral." They were in the worst acoustic pocket of Union Station, a wedge between two load-bearing columns where voices did strange things. Their radios buzzed with half-sentences. Their boots clicked and came back louder like the floor was answering. "Cut it clean," Tucker said. "Score, pry, bag anything that ain't brick." Maya scored a rectangle, hit it with a cold chisel, and felt the wall give. Dust coughed out and hung in the air in a slow, glittering curtain. Behind the plaster, black paper, old tar felt. "Somebody boxed this," she said. Tucker looked over, interest waking in his face. "What for?" She worked the tar paper free. It ripped with a sound like Velcro in a church. Behind it, darkness, a deliberately made cavity about 3 feet wide, 2 feet tall. The smell that came out wasn't mildew or rot. It was cool, like basement air and machine oil. Maya flicked her headlamp on and leaned in. Boss?" Tucker joined her and saw them. 2 small shapes wrapped in clouded plastic dry cleaner bags, labels browned with time. One bag had a logo from Superfresh, the grocery chain that had died a decade ago. The other had a yellowed paper tag stapled to it. "What am I looking at?" Tucker said. "Coats," Maya whispered. "Kids' coats." She touched the plastic, then pulled her hand back. "It's cold." "Everything's cold in here," Tucker grunted, but he didn't sound sure. "Call security, and don't touch anything else." From somewhere deep in the building, a sound rose and died again, a thread of a whistle, so soft you could mistake it for wind. Maya glanced up the empty platform. "Did you hear that?" Tucker forced a laugh. "Rail singing. This place always sings." At his back, the brass and glass clock read 9:15 a.m. Station security taped off the work zone within minutes. A young officer in a two-stiff uniform stared at the plastic-wrapped coats like they might sit up. He whispered, "My mom still talks about those kids." The shift supervisor asked the question no one wanted to ask out loud. "You think?" "Don't say it," the young officer said. "Just don't." Someone higher up called someone else higher up. That someone had a number that still worked. Detective Helen Ward's number. She was 60 now, retired on paper, a scar on a city that had learned to build around her. She answered on the second ring. "Union," said the voice. "We found something behind 4. Ward closed her eyes. She was in her car 10 minutes later, coat thrown over a sweater, hair not even pretending to behave. On the drive in, she told herself not to hope. Hope had teeth. She parked illegally and dared anyone to tow her. The tape, the hard hats, the faces, she'd walked into this tableau 100 times in her career. It never felt like this. Tucker lifted the tar paper like a curtain. "There," he said. Ward leaned in. Her breath fogged the plastic. 2 tiny coats lay nested like moths. One red nylon windbreaker with a white stripe across the chest. One faded denim jacket with a cheap iron-on bull's patch curling at the edges. She didn't touch. Not yet. She knew better than anyone how to look. Pockets, labels, stains, clues. She saw the paper tag stapled to the red windbreaker's bag. Carter, M. Press light. June 11th, 92. Her throat closed. "Bag and tag this whole cavity like it's a crime scene," she said, voice steady by muscle memory. "No one sneezes in here without me bagging the sneeze." Tucker nodded, subdued now. "Yes, ma'am." Behind Ward, the station clock's minute hand clicked forward to 9:16. Forensics arrived with plastic tents and an attitude. Ward seeded the floor, then circled like a dog who didn't trust the people she'd called. A tech slid the denim out first, slicing the plastic clean and catching the bag in a second sleeve. He laid the jacket on unrolled butcher paper. The smell that hit them wasn't rot. It was detergent. Lemon. "Still scented," the tech said, startled. "That doesn't make sense." Ward leaned in. The denim's collar tag had been defaced by a ballpoint, the kind of thing kids do when they learn their names are theirs. "Property of Danny" scratched into the white. In the inside pocket, the tech found a folded arcade token receipt and 2 tokens themselves, glossy brass moons stamped with Galaxy games. Ward remembered the cheap arcade off Walnut, the way every birthday party used to end with sticky fingers and tickets you could trade for plastic rings. The red windbreaker came out next. The zipper tab was a little plastic star, yellow hairline cracked down one arm. The elastic cuffs were stained with something purple. Grape. The label inside had a phone number written in Linda Carter's looping hand, and beneath it a second line, fainter, childish, hopeful. Molly. Ward swallowed hard. "Photograph everything," she said. "If a thread tries to roll off this table, we arrest it." The tech lifted the paper tag from the windbreaker's bag and slid it into a sleeve. 3 dates were stamped in dull purple ink. June 11th, 92, June 13th, 92, June 14th, 92. Punched through the last date, 9/17. "Jesus," the tech whispered. Ward didn't say anything. She couldn't. Upstairs, the brass clock blinked and stuttered. Down in the cavity zone, somebody's radio fizzed with dead channels. The minute hand hit 9:17 a.m. The lights over platform 4 flickered once, twice, then steadied. From the far end of the concourse, the PA system hiccuped on. Static breathed out. "Boarding. Platform 12. The voice was not the old porter's voice. It wasn't the child's voice from the tape Ward had listened to so many times the tape had frayed. It was both. A braid of time. For a moment, every sound in the station leaned toward that announcement like flowers bending toward sun. Ward looked over her shoulder at the booth row. The tape was off 16B per her old request. The booth sat there like a mouth that had learned to keep secrets. "Kill the PA," someone said into a radio. The system clicked off. The station exhaled. Ward checked her watch. It had stopped. 9:17. She popped the crown, pushed it back in, and it ticked like nothing had happened. "Keep working," she told forensics. "Ignore the station." "Hard to," the tech said, voice thin. "I know." Ward didn't want to bring Linda to the station. She did anyway. There were things you protected mothers from, and there were things you didn't have the right to keep from them. Linda arrived with her sister gripping her elbow. She looked older than her 60 years, older than the station. Clover wasn't with her. Maybe that was mercy. Maybe she'd finally put the rabbit down. Ward met her at the tape. "We found something in the wall," she said gently. "2 coats." Linda didn't blink. "Are they jackets?" Ward said. "Children's. We're processing them carefully." Linda stepped under the tent like a parishioner entering a sanctuary. The techs stilled. Ward nodded and they stepped back. Linda reached for the red windbreaker and stopped herself an inch short, fingers trembling. She inhaled. The lemon detergent that shouldn't still be lemon hit her like a punch. "I used that," she whispered. "I used that week." Her hand hovered. Ward put her own beneath it, not touching the coat either, just lending steadiness to the air. "Molly wore this the last day of school," Linda said. "She didn't want to because it was baby red. I told her it'd be chilly." She laughed once, a broken glass sound. "I told her," Ward said. "I know." Linda's eyes landed on the denim. The bull's patch. The uneven Danny. "He always wanted to match Jason," she said. "The neighbor boy. Bulls, bulls, bulls. I told him we were in Philly, he didn't care." She touched the edge of the butcher paper, because paper was allowed. Did they?" Ward shook her head. "No remains. Just the coats." Linda's sister guided her back out. Linda paused at the mouth of the tent. "I knew they were here," she said. "Not bravado. Not performance. A simple truth. I could hear them sometimes. In the house. In the phone." Ward didn't say "I know." She said, "We're not done." With the coats removed, the forensics team mapped the cavity. It had been built on purpose. 4 clean sides, a back panel of masonite, a bottom lined with thin plywood. Someone had cared enough to keep dust off. "You don't make a time capsule like this for trash," the tech said. Ward lay on her side on a rolling mechanics creeper and slid partially into the opening, flashlight clenched in her teeth, camera in her hand. The beam found chalk at the very back, a thin arrow, smudged, pointing down. She angled the light lower. A hairline expansion joint ran under the cavity like a seam in the station's skin. The chalk arrow pointed straight at a thumb-sized plug of mortar tucked into that seam like a cork. "See that?" she asked. Shu, back on the job, older but still careful, leaned in. "Someone sealed something small in there." Ward's heart ratcheted. "Don't disturb it yet, let me shoot it." They bagged chalk scrapings, scraped a margin, and worked the mortar plug out whole. Behind it, a slit of black. The kind of space a wire could run through, or a string, or a note. Shu threaded a micro camera into the slit, static. Then the camera adjusted and showed nothing. No conduit, no cavity, just darkness that the light inside the lens couldn't find a wall in. "Depth?" Ward asked. Sue frowned at the feed. "It's not returning." "Focus." "It is focused." Ward looked from the video to the slit and felt the back of her teeth ache, the way they had in 1992 when a hum had turned her bones into tuning forks. "Back out," she said. "Cork it. We'll do this in a lab." Shu replaced the plug, hands steady because they'd learned how to keep their hands steady in this building. Evidence got weird the minute you measured it. You could feel like a genius until the readouts made you a liar. The coats were cold. Not just cool room cold. Cold like they'd lived in a basement with a different calendar. Their surface temps read 5 degrees under ambient and stayed there for an hour before creeping up like jet lag. The dust sampling inside the cavity came back with pollen from a set of plants that bloomed in late June. On the same slide, a lab tech found a microscopic brake pad fragment that hadn't been manufactured since the early 90s. The dry cleaner tag's ink reacted like it had been stamped last week. Bright in UV, no sun fade. The paper fibers under scope said otherwise. Older than the tech's entire career. Ward watched the lab's patience melt. She'd seen this before. People hit a wall where the facts started to feel like tricks. They either turned back or got religion. "Write it all down," she said. "Even the parts that embarrass us." The lab manager gave her a look. "You know what this is going to read like, right?" Like evidence, Ward said. It'll read like evidence. By afternoon, the FBI was already sniffing. Different faces, same suits. Special Agent Camille Reese introduced herself with a handshake that said, "I'm here to listen," and an expression that said, "I'm here to decide." "We saw the preliminary," Reese said. "Children's coats behind a wall? Names match? That's a development." Ward nodded. "You want the part where the PA tried to board Platform 12? Reese didn't blink. "I want it all, especially the parts your bosses didn't like last time." Ward felt something like the stir of old adrenaline. "You'll get them, and you're going to want to talk to Linda." Reese made a face Ward knew. Liability face. "Soon." "Now," Ward said, and the word came out like a door closing. Reese took the measure of her, then nodded. "Okay. Now." At 4:17 p.m., just because the station liked its jokes, 16B rang. The tape was back up. Ward had ordered it back up the minute the coats came out of the wall. She was there when it rang. She lifted the receiver and gave her name like she always had. Union Station. Detective Ward. Static. Then a breath. Then nothing. "Danny?" She tried, then hated herself for trying. "Molly?" Something like a whisper tickled the line. A syllable that could have been a word from a throat too small for it. "Mom." Ward didn't breathe. "It's me," she said. "We found your jackets." Silence layered itself. A scrape that could have been a finger against a receiver. Then a sound that made the hair on her arms stand. The soft click cadence of a punch, like an old conductor's hand tool, marking a time on a ticket. The line went dead. Reese, who had stood just out of frame because she liked not being in frame, said, "We can trace." "You can't," Ward said. She put the receiver down like she might put down a sleeping infant. "But you'll try." They locked down Platform 4 again, not for maintenance this time, for a search. Ward laid it out in a room that smelled like stress and coffee. "We're treating 12B as an evidence-adjacent site. We open nothing without imaging it first. We log every power fluctuation, every PA artifact, every watch that stops. If your phone freezes, I want the timestamp. If your pen leaks, I want that timestamp too." Tucker lifted a hand. "Detective, with respect, what if the wall does the humming thing again?" "Then we back off and we don't pretend we understand it," Ward said. "We don't walk toward lights. We don't walk toward voices. We do not follow." The room looked at her like she'd named something out loud that everyone else pretended didn't have a name. Reese closed her notebook. "We'll get you ground-penetrating radar by morning. I want the scan tied to the clock system so we can overlay anomalies." Arlene, back on the console after too many years of not wanting to, said, "Clock system is already logging 917 spikes. Today we got a 3-second freeze on a platform camera that's not even powered. That's not a thing cameras do." "Write it down," Ward said. "The station is a different species after dark. It sheds performance in layers. The marble goes quiet. The brass dulls. The echoes stop trying to show off." Ward walked the concourse alone. Under the clock, she stopped. For years, decades, she'd come here and sworn she could feel a pressure at 917, a sense that the building's bones held a breath. Now the feeling was constant, a held note humming just below hearing. She looked at the platform where Linda had kissed Molly's hair and told Danny to watch. She looked at the bench where a rabbit sat alone. "I brought you back a piece," she said, not sure who she was saying it to, the station, the kids, herself. "Now bring me the rest." From somewhere down in the 12B corridor, a light flickered, the fat, unreliable blink of an incandescent bulb trying to remember how to be a sun. Ward didn't move. She knew the rule. Behind her, a cleaning cart squeaked, a human sound anchoring her to now. The bulb stopped trying to live. Ward breathed. So did the station. By midnight, the whiteboard in the command room was a tangle of arrows again. Coats at the center this time, branches to tag, June 14th, 92. 917. Scent. Lehman. Temp. Below ambient. Pollen. Late June. Plug expansion joint. Cam. No depth. It looked like madness until you squinted, and then it looked like what madness looked like before someone named it. Pattern. Reese drew a new box. Tomorrow. GPR. Open joint. 16B monitor. She underlined monitor twice. She was a skeptic with decent hearing. Detective Ward, she said, get some sleep. Ward smiled without humor. You first. They didn't, either of them. At 2:07 a.m., Arlene slid a printout under Ward's pen. Security camera on platform 2 printed this. Don't ask me how a camera prints. We don't give it paper. Ward looked. The thermal snapshot showed 2 small heat signatures side by side where nothing physical had stood in the visible light feed. The timestamp at the bottom right read 9:17. Print me a second copy, Ward said. And someone get a message to Linda in the morning. We'll need her here. For what? Reese asked. Ward didn't answer. She wrote one line at the top of the board, capital letters hard enough to dent. Don't follow the light. She capped the marker. The station made a sound, just a building sound, just ductwork settling or a pipe clicking, small and normal and utterly human. It felt like the best miracle Ward had been given in 30 years. She went home at 3, sat in her kitchen where the evidence had lived once upon a time, and put her head in her hands. Her watch, faithless, stubborn, ticked on. The minute hand did not stick. Not yet. In 2020, a wall behind Platform 4 let go of what it had been holding. 2 small coats came out of the dark, carrying lemon and dust and time that didn't belong to this year. The tags were stamped. The clocks faltered. The phone breathed. The arrow pointed down. And a rule older than the rumor returned with the evidence. Do not follow the light. The search would open again in the morning, not just for what happened, but for where that minute went when the station swallowed it. Union Station's archive room was never meant for revelations. Just rows of sagging shelves stacked with plastic VHS cases, handwritten labels like PL4 June 1992, AM, in fading marker. Dust so thick it carried its own ecosystem. Agent Camille Reese leaned on the doorframe, arms folded. Tell me why we're digging through 200-pound dinosaur tapes instead of hard drives. Helen Ward, who had practically moved into the station again, didn't look up from the box she was rifling. Because digital loses detail. These old decks, they record mistakes. And mistakes are where the truth hides. Arlene lugged another crate onto the table and groaned. If I throw my back out, you're testifying at my disability hearing, Helen. Worth it, Ward said flatly. Reese shook her head. You're all insane. But she stayed. They loaded a tape from June 14, 1992. The day. The machine wheezed to life, a fat plastic belly digesting history. The monitor spat out grainy black and white. 9:15 a.m. Linda Carter on the bench, purse on her lap. Danny swinging his legs, Molly clutching Clover. 9 hours, 16 minutes, and 30 seconds. Linda rises, tucks her purse tighter, kisses Molly's hair. Mouths. Stay put. 9 hours, 16 minutes, and 58 seconds. The screen hiccups. A static blink. 9 hours, 17 minutes, and 0 seconds. The bench is empty. Only Clover and Danny's cap remain. Everyone in the room had seen this before. But Arlene froze the tape, wound it back, and stepped frame by frame. Here, she said. At 9 hours, 16 minutes, and 59 seconds, one frame only, there was a shadow. Not of the children, not of Linda. A tall, narrow silhouette at the far edge of the platform, just inside the column line. Its proportions were wrong. Too thin, too elongated. Reese leaned in. Could be artifact. Artifact doesn't cast toward the tracks, Ward said. That's a body. Or a coat rack, Reese muttered, but her eyes didn't leave the screen. Arlene boosted the contrast. The shadow sharpened, faint but undeniable. A head, shoulders. arms that seemed to stretch a little too long. Then, gone. Not a rack, Arlene said softly, and not her imagination. The bureau brought in a physicist. Dr. Leon Berg, white lab coat, Einstein hair, half-amused smile that said he lived to dismantle ghost stories. "I'm here," Berg announced, "to prove your haunted train station is just a badly grounded power grid." Ward didn't rise to the bait. "Then prove it." They set up equipment along Platform 4. Ground-penetrating radar, EM field sensors, infrared cameras, motion detectors. Cables coiled like snakes, laptops hummed, antennas quivered. The station looked less like a transit hub and more like a sci-fi movie set. Berg tapped his laptop. "We're logging everything. If there's a whistle, we'll know its frequency. If a light flickers, we'll see the voltage swing. No more spooky stories. Just data." Ward crossed her arms. "Let's hope your data can explain time running sideways." They ran the first controlled observation at 9:17 a.m. sharp. The brass clock ticked. Dozens of eyes, human and electronic, watched the minute hand slide into place. At that exact second, 3 things happened. Every EM sensor spiked in perfect sync, like a heartbeat across the station's skeleton. The PA system clicked on, though no one touched it, and hissed a single breath of static. One infrared camera captured 2 faint figures at the edge of the platform, child-sized, holding hands. On the visible light feed, nothing. Berg swore under his breath. "That's not electrical." Ward leaned over his shoulder. "Say it." Berg's fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Thermal imprint, human range signatures. Except they're colder than the background." "Cold ghosts," Reese said dryly. "Cold something," Berg admitted. His smile was gone now. At 4:17 p.m., like clockwork, 16B rang. This time they were ready. Multiple recorders, spectrum analyzers, trace lines, Reese herself with the receiver. She lifted it. "This is Special Agent Camille Reese." "Who am I speaking to?" Static, thin, metallic, as if the line was chewing its own tongue. Then, 2 syllables, clear enough to raise goosebumps on every arm in the room. "Mom." Reese froze. Ward grabbed a second headset and patched in. "Danny? Molly?" Silence. Then, faint as breath on glass, the sound of paper being punched. Chenk, chenk. Like a conductor marking tickets. The line went dead. Ward looked at Reese. Reese looked at Berg. Nobody had words. Arlene tapped the log. "System shows no latch, no call. The phone didn't ring." "But we heard it," Ward said. Her voice shook for the first time all day. Berg rubbed his temple. "Your station has a repeating anomaly at 9:17 and 4:17. That's the only thing I'll say for sure." Ward whispered, "Not an anomaly. A schedule." That night, Ward couldn't stop replaying the 1992 tape, frame by frame, over and over, staring at that stretched silhouette in the corner. She zoomed until the pixels bled into blocks. She swore the shadow's head was tilted, looking not at the kids but at the camera. At her. She shut the deck off and sat in the dark archive, listening to the hum of machines cooling. Her watch glowed 9:17 p.m., though the wall clock read 9:23. Ward whispered to no one, "I'm still here." And from the dark, the building whispered back with a faint, mournful whistle. In 2020, Union Station offered up more than coats. The tapes bled new shadows. The cameras caught cold children holding hands. The phone spoke in syllables it shouldn't have known. And the scientists, brought in to laugh, watched their graphs betray them. The Carter case was no longer a rumor. It was a schedule. And the next stop on that schedule was coming. By mid-October 2020, Union Station looked less like public transit and more like a fortress. Yellow tape, portable floodlights, bureau SUVs parked where taxis used to idle. Special Agent Camille Reese briefed her team in the concourse. Primary objectives: establish if the site is being manipulated physically, electronically, or otherwise. Secondary. Recover trace evidence from the coats and any newly discovered anomalies. Above all, no one goes into the sealed tunnels alone. I don't care what you hear. The team nodded, professional masks barely hiding unease. Detective Helen Ward, gray hair tied back, leaned against a column. You'll hear something. You'll all hear something. Don't follow it. A young agent muttered. Isn't that just superstition? Ward's eyes snapped. It's a rule, like gravity. First night, 2 a.m. The concourse was empty except for agents, techs, and the endless hum of machines. An intern monitoring the infrared feed suddenly ripped off her headset. Jesus Christ, did anyone else hear that? What? Reese asked. The intern's voice shook. Kids, laughing. They rewound the tape. The audio track hissed, then, clear as daylight, 2 children giggling, overlapping. Ward closed her eyes. That's them. Berg, the physicist, shook his head. Or a bleed from a tourist recording. Feedback. But then, on live audio, the laughter came again. This time not from the speakers. From the stairwell behind them. Every head turned. The stairwell was empty. The next morning they staged their heaviest test yet. Dozens of sensors, multiple cameras, full-spectrum mics. The concourse bristled with equipment. Commuters were rerouted. The public explanation was infrastructure inspection. At 9:17 a.m. the station groaned. The brass clock froze. Lights dimmed. The EM spikes pegged red. And on every visible light camera the platform shimmered, like heat rising off asphalt. Within that shimmer, 2 children. Small, holding hands. One in a red windbreaker, one in denim. Molly and Danny Carter. They looked directly into the cameras. The footage cut to black. When it came back, the platform was empty. Every watch in the room read 9:17 for exactly 60 more seconds. Then they all ticked forward at once. Berg sat down hard. I can't explain that. Ward whispered. You don't have to. That night, against protocol, 2 agents went down into 12B with only flashlights and radios. Echo team report, Reese ordered. Static. Then a voice. We're hearing tracks like wheels but no train. Second agent. Wait, there's light, down the corridor. Do you see? The line cut. Response team sprinted down. The tunnel was empty. Radios lay on the concrete, still hissing. On the wall, smeared in dust with a child's small palm, were the words, Don't follow. They brought Linda Carter in one last time. She walked under the brass clock, slower now, body frail, eyes burning. She touched the rail where her children had last sat. The PA system clicked on. Now boarding. Platform 12. Linda's lips trembled. Danny? Molly? Silence. Then faintly over the speakers, her daughter's laugh. She dropped Clover, the rabbit she'd sewn back together more times than she could count. It hit the marble with a soft thud. Take me instead, she whispered to the ceiling. The lights flickered. Reese ordered the PA killed. The Bureau pulled out a week later. Their official report cited mechanical anomalies, audio bleed, and environmental artifacts. Nothing supernatural, nothing unexplained. Just words that meant, we can't put this in a file without losing our jobs. Ward didn't sign it. She stayed behind after the last SUV left. Alone in the concourse under the brass clock, her watch frozen at 9:17 again. The phone booth rang. 16B. She picked up. Union Station, Detective Ward. Static. Then, so soft she thought she imagined it. We're still here. Her hand shook. Where? A pause. Then, don't follow. The line went dead. The whistle moaned through the walls, low and endless. In 1992, 2 children vanished into 17 minutes of silence. In 2020, the walls gave back their coats, their laughter, and their warnings. Some said it was ghosts. Some said it was time folding in on itself. The Bureau said nothing at all. But one truth lingered like dust in Union Station. At 9:17, the schedule still runs, and the next boarding call is always waiting.